you can be with anyone you want in a relationship, but based on your personality types, it's going to be pretty consistent how you get along and where you conflict. And as long as you're okay with that conflict, then, stay in the relationship. But if you're not, then it makes no sense to try to change the other person, because that's not going to be good for either of you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion, a podcast where curiosity meets career excellence. I'm Dr. Mo Anderson, and I invite you to join me on a journey of personal growth. We dive into inspiring and often hilarious conversations with global experts in each weekly episode. From communication mastery to wise investment, we've got you covered. My guest today is Eric D. As a child, Eric was a smart student who didn't like school. About those days, he says, it hurts to be misunderstood, but it hurts even more to be gaslit into believing your value differences are an illusion. And if you'd only conform to someone else's standards of happiness, you'd be happy too. Hello. After graduation, he founded an education company that helps others forge a customized path to success based on their personality type. He's written a best-selling book, The Power of Personality, and today we're discussing why personality typing is crucial to personal and professional growth.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid?
Thanks for having me, Dr. Mo.
Welcome, Eric. I'm so glad you're joining me. This is a topic I know very little about beyond, the tests they've given me at various businesses and in school programs. So I'm happy to have an expert here so we can learn more about this important area. And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
It's actually G, but trust me, it's always, there's always a mix up. E or G.
My apologies. Gee whiz, I got it.
It's like Warren G. Growing up, I grew up in in the early 90s. That was my wheelhouse. I was in junior high at the time, so nothing but a G thing. All that stuff came out when I was 12, 13.
Warren G. Yeah. Now I'm bounced and I got it in my head. Yeah. That'll be in my head all day. I grew up on him. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's begin at the beginning. What is a personality type and how many are there?
There are different methodologies when it comes to personality type. Now, I created my own, but I also studied the previous ones. So my methodology uses 16 personality types. But the biggest difference, and I think a lot of people who've done Myers-Briggs or MBTI will just be like, well, that's Myers-Briggs. I'm like, yes, but the way that we get to the result is a lot different using my methodology. And so I guess to answer the first question, what is a personality type? I would say it's the way person acts and interacts with the world based on their core value set. Because I think oftentimes we don't appreciate that we have different values. And those are the reasons why we also conflict, right? I think we appreciate that people have superficial differences, like being more organized, being more flexible. But I think when you tell someone, oh, well, I value family first, and someone will say, well, everybody values family first. Like, well, that's not necessarily true. I always think of Einstein. When's the last time anyone heard about Einstein's family? Probably not, but
True.
We're glad that he prioritized other things because it's probably made it great for families all over the world. Right. So I would say that's what a personality type is. It's how you interact with the world based on your values. Okay. Great.
And you just reminded me, I haven't had an expert on in finance. She was a senior accountant at the IRS for years, and now she's a consultant. And she actually related, values to financial planning, and that the reason a lot of people, go broke or make poor decisions is that their decisions aren't value-based. So it's something we need to think about a lot more. And thank you for mentioning Myers-Briggs, because most people are familiar with that one. So that kind of gives them an example of the area, the type of thing we're talking about.
right? Everyone
Well,
remembers the four letters, right? Like IMJ,
right.
EMT, and like, what? Oh, what was I again? I forgot. I took it in college. I don't remember.
Exactly. Well, how can knowing your personality type help with your career and personal relationships?
I'll start with the relationships first because that's the one that everyone always asks. Like it could be like the most professional setting, and someone will be like, "Okay, that's great. All that stuff is good, but who should I hook up with?" And like I always, I always take the safe route because people often ask me that when they're already with someone. So I'm like, "Are you asking me to give you an excuse to not get along with your significant?" Yeah, right, exactly, right. And I'm always just like, "Well,
that's right."
Yeah. I'm like, well, you know what? All I can say is you can be with anyone you want in a relationship, but based on your personality types, it's going to be pretty consistent how you get along and where you conflict. And as long as you're okay with that conflict, then, stay in the relationship. But if you're not, then it makes no sense to try to change the other person because that's not going to be good for either of you. And that's generally what I'll say about relationships is like when you value certain things, like, for example, half the population values safety and security. About a third of the population values excitement. And those are two competing things, right? Like a person who values excitement is going to be like, I love going on a roller coaster. It makes me feel like I'm going to die, like I'm being thrown around, and it's exciting. And the person who values safety and security is just like horrified, right? Because they're like, why would you ever want to feel like you're going to die? I just want to sit and have a massage, feel comfortable.
It's a rush of adrenaline. I'm that excitement person, so I know why.
You're like, no, more. Let's do it again. Like, let's do the roller coaster over again. Right? Yeah. And so that's a conflict. But funny enough, that's actually the most common coupling are those two personality types. Because once again, they complement each other, right? Because they can both learn from each other and grow. And as long as they don't kill each other in the process, then it's great. And that's what I would say for that. In terms of careers, it's super helpful because at the end of the day, we're told when half the population focuses on safety and security, most population is told, oh, this is what you have to do. You have to get good grades. You have to take this linear path to success because it's the safe route. But really, I find like the safest route is just being true to yourself because that's probably the easiest way to get from point A to point B, where point B is happiness. And I think in general, it's important to know what personality type you are because then you can figure out what value system. You value excitement. You're going to be all about the hustle, right? Where other types aren't great with the hustle. They're like, oh, I don't like this. This is like making me uncomfortable. Wait, are you saying that even if I work hard, I might not do well? And I think if you tell someone who's used to the hustle and the excitement, they're like, no, that's okay. Like, I don't mind the risk because I know that if I do well, I'm going to get rewarded. And I think those are two different instincts, right? And that lead into two totally different professions or professional fields.
Right. Great examples. So why do you think, and I read this about you, and I want to know why you think some common psychology ideas like extroversion, introversion, birth order, and type A or B are overblown or perhaps a myth?
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying before about like half the population kind of fitting into one large group. And I think that personality type tends to get, I don't want to say overblown, but it tends to get overrepresented. They're the most likely to volunteer for things. They're definitely the most likely to volunteer for studies. And so I think in the past, when people did that, they're like, oh, okay, this is like what a human being is. When it's like, well, that's only half the population. And I think it's pretty easy to see with introversion, extroversion. One of the arguments that I often get against personality typing is someone will say, well, that's just BS because, sometimes I'm extroverted and sometimes I'm introverted. It's just based on the scenario. And I think I agree with that. It's all contextual. So that's why I tend to go more for the value-based system because generally if it's something that connects with your value, then of course you're going to be more outgoing and more aggressive and take more agency. But if it's something that you really don't really care about and it's low on your priority scale, then of course you're going to be like, oh, whatever. Like I'm not going to take an active part. So it might seem like you're introverted in that moment. And this is one of those, one of those examples that tends to work.
Well, I like that because it sounds like you allow for some fluidity within your model, and some of those others are very, very rigid, like birth order. I'm the oldest child, but I was also an only child for 13 years. So I've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that because I went from being all about me to take care of your sister.
Right. And if you're about excitement, then taking care of your sister probably meant more like, oh, I'm going to make sure she has fun with me, and kind of like doing, like, oh, let's play. Right. Where I think older siblings are more like, and once again, not to keep going back, but since half the population are about safety and security, if that person is your oldest sibling, then they definitely will fall into the like, oh, listen to me. I'm going to parentify, or I'm parentified. I'm going to be your second parent. Let's like be responsible. But just, like everyone has older siblings who aren't that. So we just by experience. Personally, my older sibling is more of the excitement, visceral, let's go on a roller coaster type. So she was never like, listen to me because I'm responsible and I'm older. She just listened to me because you're annoying me and I don't like being annoyed. Right. Where my youngest sibling is part of that personality type that favors security and safety. So he actually is the most conscientious of the three of us. He's definitely the person who's like, wait, what do we need to get mom on her birthday? Yeah.
Right. Right. And if you look at the birth order thing, that wouldn't typically be what you expected of the youngest. So, okay, great example. Sounds like you have a fun family and you get along pretty well with your siblings too, which is cool to hear.
I'm the middle child, so I guess I kind of have to.
There you go. So I want to talk more about your personality typing methodology as we, discuss it. Personality typing is not new, but tell us more about your methodology and what, spurred you to pursue a different path and why you think it's better than other systems. And it's a broad question, so take it wherever you want to go.
Well, what motivated me to pursue it was basically growing up. I always felt that my values were maybe a little different than what was being given to me as like what I should be doing. I mean, I think typical for a lot of people. They're like, oh, like I don't want to take the linear path, and their instincts are telling them they shouldn't, and they don't want to, but people are telling them they should. So that's when I really got into studying it, and I really got into developing it more when I started owning my own education company, and I could test it out on, we would have about 1,000 students a year. And so you could really see the difference between teacher and student. You could see where the teacher had their bias and where the student was going. And I was always telling my teachers, like, look, like you need to understand how your value is different than your students' values because you can't really be pushing that. You got to like adjust based on their value. You can't be like trying to tell them, oh no, like always do your homework and write it down on a workbook or like a organizer. Some students don't do well with organizers, right? I didn't. Like I would always like do it for like the first couple days of every single school year because I'd be like, no, I'm going to be a good student and do this for now. And it would last about a week. And then I was throwing my homework in my backpack, and
And I was all into the organizer and it was, and my name was on it. And I was really disturbed if someone took it.
Did you have great handwriting? Was it precise handwriting?
No, I'm a dentist. So we learned early to have scribble, indecipherable scribble. It was never good. It's not like it got bad. It just was never good.
Well, now we have computers. That's what computers are for, right?
Yes.
Just type it out.
Hello.
Right. Yeah. Right. But I think in general, my personality typing methodology, I would say is better than others because it's a little bit more developed. Like we have taken what I learned from the other methodologies and kind of tried to evolve it. Of course, I use animals. So in a sense, that's more fun. I think people are very quick to remember what animal type they are versus some 4-letter combination. Like if you tell someone they're a fox, I think immediately people know what that means. Oh, they're crafty, they're shrewd,
right? Wily.
They're kind of like, wily, right? And that's very true. Foxes are like when you think of like James Bond, Han Solo, when you think of that roguish character, they're around us too. There are stockbrokers, there are trial lawyers, they are, sales and marketing. And you could use that for any other of the animal types. You could figure out, okay, this is what their archetypal job is.
Got it. So you're saying and I assume I didn't see your educational background. Did you study psychology or sociology or something in school, or did you skip that and you went into your own education system?
I did go to school, surprisingly, as surprised a lot of people, but I actually studied screenwriting at UCLA. Go Bruins.
Wow.
But
I'm glad I asked.
That's my academic background. But it makes a lot of sense because I think when you read a lot, which I did as a kid, I wasn't always the best student, but I did read a lot. You learn about characters, and when you learn about characters, you start to realize, oh, the reason why we study characters isn't so that we can memorize something about, some character in War and Peace. It's that, these characters are real people. They are real insights of real people that you're going to meet on the street, that you're going to interact with. And so I think when you have a background in English literature, like I do, and then into creative writing, you start realizing, this is all like creative writing and art. I've been told is reality times 100, right? It's like putting a microscope on someone and really figuring it out. And I think that's what got me into learning about people and really getting me more focused into like developing that methodology. Because I think sometimes, no offense to people who take psychology or follow that route, but it is a lot of just memorizing, this is what Skinner believed. This is what Freud believed. This is what Jung believed, and I think that's cool. But I do think there's a certain point where you have to start developing your own thoughts about people and how they interact. And the best way to do it is just pure practice. So I feel like my life has been a lot of like practice in terms of practical education with people.
Yeah. And we're all becoming, as Michelle Obama said, there's not an end point. It's the journey.
Oh,
and
exactly.
I think we trap ourselves when we forget that and just stay in that mold. So I still need to know how you got from screenwriting to what you're doing now that you've shared that, because I'm a writer as well. And I write fiction and nonfiction, but in fiction, not only character, but character development, and they need to be fully rounded. So I can certainly equate how that led you to the field that you're in. At least I have a theory, but I'd like to hear, was there a specific incident or something that prompted you to go, I need to go into this area?
I think it was just, they were combined because, I coach writing as well. And the way I coach writing ends up being more like life coaching, right? Because it's always about finding your voice, right? I think sometimes people focus so much on the grammar and they focus on all these things that are not that important, where they're writing in a way that they think people want to hear, when in fact they should be writing how they want to speak. How do you communicate? What's the way you express yourself? Right. And so I realized you can't find your voice without finding yourself. And that's what led me on that path. And I think in general, I started my education company and that's what I started doing. And then the funny thing is I shuttered the education company because I wanted to re-pursue, I guess, screenwriting. And in that process, I joined a writing group, and this writing group, I made some friends, and we went to the bar, and we go to the bar after writing and we talk about stuff, and the personality stuff came up as a topic and people just started talking about it nonstop. And a friend of mine said, hey, everybody's talking about this. You should write a book on it. And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to continue writing my pilots about sex addicted rabbits and stuff. And what ended up happening was she took that, the ideas from the personality methodology and put it into a show that she was writing for, one of the episodes. And then when she did that, I was like, okay, you know what? I am going to do this because that way I can also pitch it that way. Like it was on a show on Apple TV. But also I realized how fun it is for people. And so that's how I did full circle and went back to this. So.
And I love that. I love that you shared that. Thank you. And how quickly they adopted it and were to the point that she was able to use it. Sometimes we get new concepts, but if it doesn't make sense to me, I can't apply it. So you knew you were onto something.
Yeah, she used it as kind of a funny, jokey kind of thing in the show for her one episode. And she changed the animals to make it like funny. Like someone gets like a mouse or something. Or no, someone accidentally gets a mouse and they're like, oh, okay. Like obviously I don't have a mouse in my personality typing methodology. But yeah, like I just showed me how fun it was. And I think she introduced it to the writer's room. And I think a lot of them thought it was funny. And they, writers inherently are a little insecure. So of course, like anything where you can learn about yourself is always going to make you feel better and make you feel good. And I think writers are always on that kind of journey, right? Sent to be becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. So you shared the journey of getting to the point of developing this methodology. We know that it's about animals, and I will be asking you in a moment to tell us a little bit more about the book. But now I'm curious, we've chatted a little bit here and before. I've shared some things about me. So I want to know, can you type me? And what are some positive aspects of my personality type? Or,
Well,
do you have enough to go on? You can ask me some questions if you need to help you.
I like how you said, no, lead with the positive, which is so funny because when people ask, I almost always lead with negative. Not to be negative, but it's funny because when you lead with positive, generally people will always say yes, right? No matter if it fits. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm athletic. I played JV basketball when and I was on the 12th man on my JV team. But, the question I would ask is who's your favorite author or some of your favorite authors and why?
Some of my favorite authors. Well, I actually mentioned one who is Michelle Obama, and people don't think of her in that aspect, even though she's had 2 global bestsellers. But she is a phenomenal writer. And then I like a lot of fiction people who you may or may not be familiar with. Terry McMillan. This is a good question. I used to read a lot of Westerns when I was a kid, actually. And I can't remember the guy who wrote these Westerns, but I would read like 5 of them a week. And
you like Westerns?
So, yeah, Westerns, but I really like contemporary fiction. And I have a lot of friends who are authors, so I think I'm just a little hesitant to say. Name. Yeah. But I do like that genre. I can say that. Yeah.
Okay. And if you were would you rather learn a lot of information about a subject, or would you rather learn a lot of information about yourself?
At this point in my life, I would say a subject.
Interesting.
20 years ago, I might have had a different answer.
And were you a ambitious student? Were you
always
like Killer Instinct, like Hermione Granger-ish kind of student?
Yep. I asked I wanted a microscope. Anytime a microscope or a chemistry set, anytime anyone asked me what kind of gift I wanted, I read the encyclopedia for fun. Yeah. Major nerdy kid. Yeah.
Which is not bad. That's something. That's good information right there. And reading the encyclopedia for fun. I mean, at first, I would say either a killer whale or a dolphin. Those are the 2 animals. And I know that's kind of cheating because I took 2 animals as opposed to 1 animal, but they are kind of different. But the fact that you are more into information and a pretty ambitious student lends me to believe probably killer whale. And that would be fictionally, that's like Hermione Granger. Who else is like a fictional? Have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
Oh no, not Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter. Even though he's brilliant, but no, not Hannibal Lecter. Clarice Starling. Yeah. Clarice Starling would be a killer whale.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She's a great
feeling good about that. Clarice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine her reading the encyclopedia for fun and being very she's clearly very ambitious in the film, and
I can't I'm a boomer, so we didn't have computers, so that was my version of Googling things.
Imagine now if you were a kid now with the internet, you'd be like, it'd be heaven. You'd be like Googling every single thing.
Even now I'm doing that. I'm constantly on Chat GPT or Google or whatever. I am so curious about things. I can barely contain myself. If I hear a new word, I'm just giddy about it.
Yeah, and that falls into the Smith category. So there's how I said, they're half the population like safety and security. Funny enough, the Smiths like information. That's like their number one value. Is they want information. As much as you can give them. I used to say knowledge, but then everyone said, I seek knowledge. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to say information because that's less glamorous than knowledge. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. Thank you. Killer Whale. And I have downloaded your book, and it's on my list. I interview so many authors and I get a lot of books, but I like working my way through it because, again, I love learning. So next vacay, I'll be able to look more closely at it. But in that same vein, in fairness, tell me about your personality type.
So I'm a baboon, which is like that's a very unflattering animal. So that's why when people don't like their animal, I'm like, hey, you know what? My animal's very unflattering. So don't be complaining. Like people, I don't like being a beaver. I'm like, okay, you need to stop.
I'm glad you didn't say that about me.
A beaver? Yeah. Well,
yeah.
It's not the most glamorous animal either, but so baboons are part of what's called the shaman quadrant, and shamans focus on self-knowledge. Like that's our biggest value is like discovering ourselves and also helping other people discover themselves. And so the difference, of course, with the baboon is the reason why I call it baboon is I think of like Rafiki in The Lion King. They're kind of advocates. They kind of like how he's lifting Simba and stuff. Like that's kind of baboons are really good at having a voice to their ideas and their ethics and their principles and kind of just talking, and getting it out there. They might not be the most organized and they might not be the most structured or great students, but they're definitely good at talking and getting stuff out there. So
yes,
that would be a baboon.
Well, that's it.
Type.
That fits. And our first thought when we hear baboon is that pink behind or whatever. So
yeah, I do that all the time. I'm always showing my butt to people, and there
we go.
Yeah, so that is
the clip for our reel.
Right. And people get mad because it's not a very impressive butt. So it's not as pink as they want it. No.
But there you go. It's the wrong audience. You're showing it to the wrong people. I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
A type for you. A type for your type.
I got to go to the zoo. And
and there you go. But keep trying. That's what I'm going to encourage you to do. So last but not least, you've shared with us concepts, and I really enjoyed hearing about my type and your type as well. But tell us more about the book and explain, please, what differentiates your book from all the other personality type books out there.
I would say the biggest difference is the book was written as a way of teaching people to become the test. Because that's like one of my big hang-ups is that, you have these personality books and they have like a cookie cutter test in the beginning, right? You got like 70 questions or whatever, yes or no, or A or B. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily work with everyone. And that's like diagnosing someone. And then you get all the whole book are prescription, right? But what happens if the diagnosis is wrong? Prescriptions and the treatment can often be harmful, right? If you're telling someone to do something that doesn't necessarily fit them. So that's why I wanted to write a book that teaches the methodology and the typing methodology. So by the time you read it, you should be able to understand and I guess I don't say categorize, but figure out what personality type you are, most importantly, and the people around you. And then from that point, there are certain prescriptions of the book, but for the most part, the book is about understanding how to read people and understand them better.
Excellent. I like that you left some room for growth and self-discovery. And I would encourage people to download or purchase a copy of the book. Tell them how they can connect with you and learn more about you and also get the book, please.
I said all that stuff about cookie cutter tests, but if you do want to take personality assessment test, which I created, I said all that.
I got the test for you.
Yeah, I got the test for you. Once again, it's a lot better to buy the book, but this is kind of if you just want to get a little taste of it, you can go to utopiaproject.com, and that's Utopia spelled like YouTube. So YOU, Utopia project.com. And there's an assessment there that you can take. But if you just want to learn more about my life coaching, writing coaching, and just what I'm doing in general, you can go to projectutopia.com. You just have to flip the order. And that's my main website.
We'll be sure to drop those in the show notes. And folks, be sure and visit utopia.com and projectutopia.com and get the free resources and learn more and buy the book. That's the best way you can support creators and authors and help us grow. And don't loan it to a whole bunch of people either. Just recommend it. So, right, Eric.
It's better to have your own,
Yes, absolutely.
Come to LA and then I can sign it for you. Just find me in LA and sign it.
I would love that. Yeah. I would love that. Well, thank you so much, Eric. This has been a really delightful, informative interview. I didn't know any of this, so thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Dr. Mo.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you, listeners, for your time and support of this woman-owned indie podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and share for more like this. Until next time, be well and be safe. And wasn't that a great program? Oh, love that episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Learn more about me on my website, drmoanderson.com. That's MOE. You can read book excerpts, watch videos, learn about my services that I offer, and book me for a speaking engagement. I'd love to talk with your group, and I'd love to work with you. So until the next time, review, renew, and renew. Thank you.